So we're on 17th Street, and what you see here is encampments of people experiencing homelessness, people who've been pushed literally up against the 5 freeway, which is to our right. Through decades of gentrification of other areas of downtown San Diego, people have literally ended up right here on the very edge of downtown San Diego. Some of the tactics that have been used to move people around have been criminalization policies, which really means targeting a people for things that, like surviving on the street, like finding shelter. So you see people who are literally living in the dirt, trying to stay out of people's way, that are being targeted with laws such as encroachment, originally meant to keep people from leaving their garbage cans on sidewalks and blocking the way. These laws are now being used to target people experiencing homelessness and trying to survive on our streets. And how that works is, how the criminalization policies work are that people are given warnings for the behavior of surviving on our streets by having tents or blocking the sidewalks. Then people are issued citations if they continue to have a tent or belongings blocking a sidewalk, or in this case, blocking a patch of dirt. Those citations will lead to warrants if they're not paid. Those warrants sometimes lead to arrest, turning somebody into a criminal for just trying to survive on our streets here in San Diego. As a plea bargain for the arrest, folks are often given a stay-away order that they agree to, even though the stay-away order is for an area where people have to access services such as Neil Good Day Center in the background, St. Vincent de Paul, which is over on Imperial Avenue, which is just a short walk from here. Storage facilities where people are storing their belongings to keep things out of the streets. So now they have a stay-away order that they could violate and yet again get arrested, get additional citations, and end up with a criminal record that makes it harder to get off the streets. So it all leads to what we call this management of homelessness. It just does not work. And we've seen this as people have been pushed all the way up to the 5. We look at the bridges that go over the freeway, that go over the 5, that we now see people have been pushed on. But what happens is there's neighborhoods on the other side of these bridges, and as they see the city pushing people further and further into their neighborhoods, they push back because people don't want people living on the sidewalk in front of their neighborhoods. And so we'll see this ebb and flow of the population on our streets in downtown San Diego, and we'll see this population go to areas such as further north in East Village, where some of the more vocal opponents to homelessness and proponents of the criminalization of homelessness have pushed for these policies, and they now see the result, which is encampments on their doorsteps. This is just really clear proof that these policies don't work. In fact, they may lead to making the situation even worse and leading to more homelessness in our cities. So we must have a balanced approach. And we certainly don't need approaches of notices of cleanup and property removal. These are basically encampment sweeps. These are really meant to make sure that people don't become entrenched on the streets and don't become too comfortable, I guess. People want to get off the streets. People don't want to sleep on the concrete. We don't have to convince people of that. We just have to offer what people need. We have to ask people what it will take to help them get off the streets. Not just tell them what we have or try to fit a square peg into a round hole, and then when that doesn't work, we come by and do encampment sweeps, tell people that they're leaving too much garbage, tell people that they're using the restroom on our streets, even though we don't provide public restrooms. And I think another really good example of really bad policies that have really led to exacerbating this policy is the largest development in the East Village area. This is the further gentrification of the downtown San Diego area, and we see the Pinnacle on the Park apartments. They were supposed to be managing public restrooms as part of a park that's part of that development that were closed. They closed the restrooms because they were drawing more homeless people into the area. But the whole point is that provide services to people experiencing homelessness, not take away those services and then issue citations when people have to use the restroom somewhere. So we need more balanced policies. And it's really important to make sure that people know that these are city policies. These are things coming out of our city leadership. This isn't the police department saying we want to spend all of our time shooing homeless people from one neighborhood to another. These are people in housing complaining for obvious reasons. These are developers who want to make money in our downtown area and build beautiful projects, which we want. But we can't use the criminalization of homelessness as the tactic to clean up the area. It does not work. We've seen it very clearly does not work. And it ends up pitting more people against each other. It ends up pitting the housed community against the unhoused community. And equally so, it ends up pitting communities like the residential areas on the other side of the bridges against our East Village neighborhoods. So we're all in this together. We need to tackle this issue where it sits today. And where it sits today is primarily in East Village for the downtown area. This is where people are experiencing the crisis. This is where we need to launch an all hands on deck effort to get the folks off the street into the solutions, primarily based on permanent housing that people need to get off the streets, stay off the streets, and become really part of our housed neighbors and housed community.